not only children, but those in the at-risk, medically fragile, older, elderly, all those people. And we have to be able to screen students and employees every day upon arrival. So one of the purchases that you saw that we made was for a fever scanner. It looks about like the phone. It's maybe a little bit bigger, not as big as an iPad, but it sits on a tripod, and we're going to use them at graduation for the first time. But those will be what we will start using this summer at the entrance to every one of our buildings to scan to see if anyone has a fever. And we'll have to establish a protocol for what we do when someone turns up hot. But this is the very first step to whether or not we can open schools. So we are planning to start summer school on June 8th, face-to-face. And we're going to roll out as much schooling as we can all summer long. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about that. That is different. It will be voluntary, so I'll go ahead and rest everybody there that the summer pieces would be voluntary. But this will give us a dry run, practice run at August, so that on day one, we'll be ready to open school and make it as normal as possible. And again, we don't know in which format we're going to be open, but we're going to be ready for all four of them. Bring that back down. Okay, so each of these screens, and I'm not going to read them to you, but I just wanted to make sure you understood what each of those three areas meant. And when I say understood, in case you're asked, you got to, why are they doing the things that they're doing in the way in which they're doing them? I wanted you to be able to see what was going to dictate all the different people we have to protect as part of our planning. So you can see there, it's pretty comprehensive. So we're going to have a way to ascertain which of our employees have these risks. Also, we're working on that now because there's HIPAA, who has to know it, so there's a lot of things that we're waiting on from our legal to help us with. Then the next piece, we have to be able to promote the healthy hygiene, all that kind of stuff. So that's hand washing, wearing a cloth face covering, though that's not mandated, it is recommended. So we do not have to make anybody do that, but we do have to provide them if they want them. Cleaning, disinfecting. My question was, is it every class period? What do we do about ventilation? Is there going to be something we have to change? These were just some challenges I made note of, because all it says is we have to intensify it. They have not given us any guidelines. Like, for example, in China, every hour they must wash their hands. So that's part of it, right? I think it's at the end of every 2 classes, a crew comes in and cleans the desktops, things like that. So we haven't gotten those measures yet. So we don't really know what that's going to be. These are questions we will have to answer though before we start. And then of course, social distancing and limited mixing between groups. Still don't know how we're going to be able to handle football, but that hasn't come out yet either. Okay, so we have to know, do we have monitoring, and are we prepared to have a leave plan, right, for Corona? So it's 14 days is all they pay for. So what happens if somebody needs to take that leave multiple times? They're going to have to burn their days. So sooner or later, somebody who conceivably is exposed 3 times and decides that they've got to stay home, or the doctor dictates that they have to stay home, we're going to be faced with somebody saying to us, but I had to do this, and well, I'm sorry, but you've run out of days. Are we going to adjust our policy? Are we going to change our leave policy? Things like that. So those are things you're just going to have to kind of contemplate as we go forward. Of course, I think that's a ways down the road, and again, a lot could change between now and August, and none of these guidelines be in place. But as of now, this is what we're planning with. So I just wanted to share this with you because I think it is a good example of kind of what we're faced with having to deal with. See, now I'm going to ask Troy to help me. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Say right there, Troy. I got it. We have that. So I shared that, not to alarm anybody or to play alarmist at all, but more to just say these are all the things we have to plan for. Because if this is what they're sharing with us, as far as be thinking, these are the things you're going to have to be thinking about. Well, they were dictated that these were the things that were going to happen in order for schools to open. So once we get those measures, and it could be measures similar to this, and it may be completely different ones, but I thought you should at least see what would be the implications of if we had to have 6 per classroom or 10 per classroom, as far as the number, staffing. We'd have to hire more teachers. I don't even know that we could get enough teachers to do all that. So those are some of the things that we have to be thinking about. And the other implications are like bus routes. Right now we have high school, middle school, and elementary school all riding together. Well, if you're going to be forced to close down an entire campus, if one kid on a campus gets a case, or one teacher on a campus gets a case, we're going to have to change how we bus our kids, because we don't want middle school and high school to have to shut down because they rode with the one elementary kid that caused you to have to close down the elementary school. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that will have to be considered as we go forward in this piece. I'm going to head back over to my PowerPoint. Help me, or remind me. I'm just sliding my cursor over, right?
I can set back to duplicate. So if you go to the orange icon on your taskbar.
And then go current slide. Ta-da, lifesaver, thank you. Okay, so this gives you a little bit more in depth about how this PowerPoint is me talking. Like, this is this is most important. This is our best pedagogical way in which to approach education. This is what we believe in. This is why we're in public school, right? This is face-to-face instruction is what it's all about, the relationship, the social, emotional, as much as the mental piece as well. So it's important that we address a lot of these things, because if we go straight online, what sets us apart really from, homeschool? Nothing, right? There is such a disparity in remote learning, even among those of you at this table. Some of you had to sit in your cars for some of our board meetings because you don't at your home have strong enough or secure enough, stable enough internet. A lot of our students are in that same boat. I had waited to pull the trigger, so to speak, on purchasing Wi-Fi's because I had seen a great deal of research or data out there where other superintendents had jumped out there and purchased those, and they issued them to the kids. Then when they started running diagnostics to see how much they were getting used, they hadn't even been turned on. So you issuing them an iPad and a MiFi doesn't guarantee that they're going to have the support at home to urge them and make them get online and do their work. You know, those are oftentimes some of the biggest challenges we face in education. So I don't think remote learning at all is the way in which to go. But I also would rather have that than the packets and things like that. So that's why we're going to have that as our backup. You guys all know about, why face-to-face learning is best. I'm not going to read all that stuff to you. But the opposite would be the remote learning. So here's where we ended in 2019-20. We mailed home materials. We linked to different Google sites. We did Zoom meetings. Our teachers had office hours. But the majority of the work was done via packets, right? And that's because that was the fastest thing we could turn around. And because we knew about the internet access, while we could have done more things online, we just didn't think it was fair for the kids that couldn't access it or whose parents perhaps couldn't provide them with a device, and we were not in a position at this time to give everybody a device. We used the materials, the send home materials. So that's kind of where we ended. Kind of what worked, was one of the questions I felt like we needed to talk about. So we put together a teacher group to kind of debrief what happened in the spring and get them to give us their feedback and their guidance, which is how we determined our summer PD initiative. So as you guys know, in the past, you've always had 2 days of what are they called? Exchange days for employees. So one of the things that they had done in the past was they watch all the required state videos. I think Mr. Fry saw those when he went into EduHero and can attest to the fact that there's a lot of them that they're supposed to watch and do. But we decided that what would be more beneficial for us would be to focus on instruction. The bottom line is we know a lot of our kids are behind. So if we have to give instruction again in a remote manner because we're dictated to close again, or because we have parents who just opt to keep their kids at home, things like that, those are challenges that they may have the option to do, then we have to figure out how to best reach them. And unanimously, everybody said we've got to all be on the same platform. It can't be where I'm a parent of 3 different kids, I work all day, and I've got to try to figure out how my kids are going to share one device, and I've got to go and check on how they work. And for my 7th grader, I have to go to a different website than I have to go to for my high schooler, and then my elementary kid doesn't know how to sign on. So there was a lot of elements that we really needed to fix in order for our students to benefit from remote learning. And the first of which, and probably the most important, was education for our for our teachers. So we required everyone to get Google Classroom certified. We started this a couple weeks ago. We already have we had some of them do it over the weekend, so, as those early adopters. So we have quite a few already certified, but they are, they're getting to where they can all instruct online, live, so that the students who were at home could ask questions and there'd be that exchange throughout the lesson, just as if you were in a classroom. Also, we have been told that while what we did in the spring was sufficient, that it would not count for ADA going forward. So we would need to have a way in which we could take attendance each period. So if the kids were attending online, you'd have to be able to prove that, maybe take a screenshot of all the people that were in the Zoom meeting, things like that. So those are other factors that we're having to figure out. But along the way, we have to also answer questions like how many hours per day per grade level, what would be the grading expectations. We'd have to change, how we're doing our curriculum. So these are the kinds of things that are going into our planning now. They did tell us that we have to be able to expect short-term closures. And again, my questions were, how, could somebody please determine the rules? I need to know when we have to close, and I need to know who's determining the rules. And right now, those questions have yet to be answered. The next is about the TEA recommendation. So this is the piece that a lot of people, you're probably hearing buzz about. We don't really know why this is being pushed so much, but there is a big push to go to year-round school. A big push to have 11-month contracts. Well, we've already signed contracts for next year. So in order for us to do some of this, we'd have to change teacher contracts. We'd have to try to bring people in over the summer to, adjust everything. Curriculum, bus routes, food. I don't know the financial impact that would be to add an additional 30 days, but that's what they're suggesting. We might, we have 2 bad weather days built in. They're suggesting you be able to have 30. So I added the calendar in your packet just to kind of show you the options that we have. If you look at building a calendar, that anticipates scenarios, I just don't know how you schedule for COVID. That's my biggest argument against this whole thing, because if I put in additional weeks here and there throughout this calendar that are for intervention to catch our kids up, let's say we put it, when does hunting season start?
Third weekend.
Right. So in this intersessional calendar that Commissioner of Education, Morath, is proposing, if you look up here, you see that there is an additional week in November, an additional 2 weeks, December and January, an additional week in March. This is what they're suggesting, how you rebuild your school year. So that if you, from August to that first week in November, you have a COVID closure, then everybody knows they're in school the second week that you're adding there. So you're building in your 14 days of COVID closure. So again, if you have that second week built in and you don't have to close, because again, you can't schedule when that closure is going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow or if it's going to happen in January, we just don't know. So if you don't use that, then what they suggest that you do is the first week is usually when you have your Thanksgiving holiday, and then the next week would be for intervention. So again, I ask you, if that's hunting season and you're telling 60 kids, let's say, that they have to come because they need intervention, remediation, we're catching you up from what you missed last spring and you're behind or you're failing. So those would be the kids that would have to come. The others wouldn't. How many of those kids are coming? So that was my other kind of question as to how, I don't know how you can make them come. It's like summer school. You can tell them we're going to retain you, but if you don't come, but I mean, there's no truancy tied to it, just like summer school. So again, this is where the samples intersessional calendar lies. You've got unexpected school closures built in throughout, flexible weeks provided, and just provides larger breaks in winter, which to me is when it's going to happen. Supposedly it's colder, it doesn't like the heat. Who knows? It changes all the time. I'm not the medical professional, that's for sure. So then what they did to kind of entice people to get on board with this was they added some funding. But I will tell you that when we ask, so will there be additional ADA, it's only going to be half day. And we ask, well, if we move teachers to an 11-month calendar and we get half day ADA, how are we going to pay teachers? And they said, you don't need to change. They're just basically on call for 11 months. So in other words, you get the first week and basically you say this group of teachers are just going to work that week. And then the next 4 weeks, you got to pick a different group of teachers to be off that week. And then the next week, so they're still only going to work 187 days. So they're not going to give you any more money to fund this. And your teachers don't really know what their schedule is because it would not be the same for everyone. Because every time there's an additional week would be a different set of teachers would work and the others would not. Because remember, everybody wouldn't have to come, right? Only those that needed intervention would have to come. Unless it was a COVID closure, then everybody has to teach online. So that's the suggestion. Sporadic short-term closures. Again, these were my arguments. You can't schedule COVID. How is stopping instruction for weeks, 4 weeks in December? Really, to me, that's no different than summer. And the whole argument for doing this was to combat this COVID slide that we're going to have for them being out back to back with the summer slide. So we think we're hoping that we've come up with some ideas to help do that without having to do so. So on the hybrid learning piece, these are some of the things that the school districts around the state are considering. Some are looking at A-B days, which is half of your students attend on Monday, Wednesday, Friday of this week. Next week they come Tuesday, Thursday. So you basically just switch, right? Half attend on one whole week while the other are attending virtually, right? Remote instruction. And then switch the next where you have half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Again, I do not know how you could do that. For people need childcare in order to work. You know, I don't know what you would do if your high school kid was scheduled to come in the afternoon, your elementary kid was scheduled in the morning. What would happen to the elementary kid when they went home? So there's all these sort of things. They just won't show up. Exactly. Yes.
I do have a question. Is our funding still going to be tied 100% to attendance?
It is.
They're not going to come, Dr. Boyd. I don't think. And what does happen if somebody calls you on the phone and says, Dr. Boyd, I'm scared to send that. I'm not going to send little Johnny. So then do we have to?
Do we have to teach them remote? If they
We
just
have
say
to.
we're not coming?
I mean,
because
if
we don't
somebody
want
says,
to.
I'm not coming at all for the whole semester because I'm scared, then we have to.
They have not given us the guidance on that for an answer. You know, what they're saying is if they're in your district, they're assigned to you, you're supposed to educate them and we're giving you this.
Now, this is what's going to happen. It's going to happen at work, everywhere. People are going to say, I need 2 weeks vacation. So I'm either going to be scared or I'm going to say I have a fever. I'm going to say something and they're going to get
Already have.
yeah, it's already happened. They're going to get a week off or 2 weeks off, whatever. And they're going to do these kids the same way. We don't think they should come there because it's too much trouble getting them up coming to school. So have they thought about this kind of stuff?
I think that's a great question. They will say that like we do all the time, it'll be up to us to, you know,
I mean,
to follow up with where they are and why they're out
here.
here.
And say either going to, because
Well,
it's real convenient to be scared of it.
It is. It's same with
When
workers.
you don't want
I
to do something.
I totally agree with Steve. From now on, every time we have an attendance problem, it's going to be because I was scared or,
Mhm.
hey, my baby's running a fever. And there's not going to be any ease to it. And you're going to start having it with your employees too, because I imagine everybody around this table has already saw it at their job.
Oh, yes.
People, once you go to telling people, I'm going to pay you stay home if you're sick. I've had more sick people than there's ever been in the world.
And
I
it's-
imagine most jobs have been the same.
And it's real easy for the state to say that's a local decision whenever it's a tough decision to make.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to make the tough decision.
Absolutely.
You're not paying the bill either.
Right. They're telling us, look at your leave policy, you know,
Yeah.
so that it will come down to decisions like that. Our idea right now is to host class live. Roy's been doing a lot, and he's of extensive research on our bandwidth and ensuring that we have enough, that every teacher, I challenged him, I need to know that every teacher can be broadcasting online at the same time. that won't ever happen, but I want to know we can do that. And he's been doing all the research to ensure that we'll be able to do that so that we can take attendance and get the full attendance. Because here's the problem. If we just take the idea that, well, you know, you need to withdraw then and do homeschool or something, we're not going to provide. And then all of a sudden our enrollment's at 900 instead of 1,300. We're looking at having to cut a whole bunch of jobs.
Yeah, and it's gonna come down to that. We can stay at home and homeschool and still get all the benefits of going to school. We're gonna run into a whole lot of that too.
Well, the only thing we have to offer that nobody else can is extracurricular. You know, being in band and ag and football and, you know, all that kind of stuff is the one thing that separates public school from any homeschool. Not to mention the social interaction piece that we all
Some of
believe
them
is
don't
important.
want none of that, you know.
Sure.
Don't care nothing about social
They
interaction
don't.
or,
Some don't. You're right.
you know.
I think you're gonna lose the ones you need here, that needs to be here.
We might.
In other words, I'm no educator. I could see talking about this fifth grade. Distance learning. I see no way from kindergarten or from pre-K to about third grade. I would say you do it.
It's very difficult to understand how you could teach a kid to read without being side by side.
Look over their shoulder.
Well, believe me, there's no shortage of vendors that want to tell us that, that they have the solution for that. But I will say that TEA has been very supportive in standing up resources that are not just things that a parent has to read to them or the parent assumes the role of teacher. And so I mentioned to you earlier about how we're going to experiment with some things for the summer for optional summer learning. There are plenty of parents who want their kids to have stuff to do, not all day, all summer long, but they wouldn't mind them having an hour or two of school to have to deal with, you know, in the summer to help them through the day. So we are going to, you know, try to roll some of that out and see how it works. We don't know either. We've never done it this way. This is not the way in which we want to teach school or have ever taught school. So we are going to be experimenting. So we've put together a Google team. They're already certified Google Classroom teachers. They did it first. And they're going to be hosting some classes for parents all summer long on how to access everything and how to troubleshoot things. And then also working with teachers on some best practices that we had never thought we'd have to learn.
And the only other question I have, you're the boss of a lot of educators. It's already almost impossible to hire a good elementary teacher, period. We post them all the time. If these men and women are fixing to be tied up for almost 12 months of the year, there's a lot of teachers in my family, that's why they chose that profession.
Absolutely.
Was if they're out about to be tied up basically
11
12
months.
months or 11 months a year, do you anticipate a mass exodus of just saying, well, it was already hard, now it's really bad.
It's ridiculous, right? I don't, because I'm not going to recommend that we go to 11 months.
Sure.
So there may be some that out there, well, there are some that are out there doing it, but I just don't think it's the best thing for kids is the reason I wouldn't make the recommendation. But
I don't
so
think you'll
I think
have
we're
a
okay.
mass exodus. You're gonna have a children, because they're already not doing it they're doing it for the kids, most of
Well, I
them.
totally agree. But one thing I do worry about is Commissioner Education. Because I think they kind of want us to go to school year round anyway. And I'm just wondering, you know, we've heard a lot of people say, don't waste a good crisis. I'm scared that when we do usher some of this stuff in, that it's gonna be here to stay. They're going, you know, they have these facilities, they really kind of want us to do it anyway. Now once you adopt a lot of stuff, I'm scared it's gonna be here to stay.
Well, I will tell you that since you brought it up, I wasn't going to bring that up, but I think it's worth noting that in this PowerPoint that they gave us or that they went over with us, they told us to go and watch a video. Well, I went and watched the video. It's the House Bill 3 and 30 series, which I sent to you guys starting last July. That video is from October 2018. Well before, and it's this intercessional calendar. So this has been on the radar long before COVID was there. So I think it's astute of you to notice. It didn't pass me up either. So some of our challenges with the hybrid learning, you know, you're looking at teaching a different group of kids every day. And again, I even put PS, this is not feasible. So I don't see us being able to do A and PM schedules, AB schedules, or 11-month year-round school. I just, and for these reasons, you know, sustaining offline learning for groups of kids on the off days, you know, how are you going to do that? I've got 20 kids on my roster, 10 show up today and 10 are remote. How am I teaching both of these groups at the same exact time, you know, and providing everything that they need? So anyway, for those parents, for those that are parents, to me, this is the most compelling evidence. You serve as a homeschool teacher for your own kids, right? And, you know, where do your children go on the off days? Talk about your own kids. How am I going to teach school when my kid's off? Supposed to be at home and I'm supposed to be giving instruction, you know, and especially the younger they are, the harder it would be. I just don't know how teachers would be able to do that. So that's a very difficult piece as well. And then this is just the last piece, you know, as leaders, we have to prepare for it all. We just don't know what it's going to look like for sure, but we know it's going to be somewhere on this continuum. So I just kind of wanted to make you aware of everything that's going on. I really can't tell you anything definitively other than what I'm considering doing is, or recommending, is that we keep our calendar as it is, and all these red days are optional days. We would have to communicate to people that there's a good chance that on October the 7th, which is Labor Day, if we had it closed, we might have to work that day. Or during the week off in November, we may only get 3 days off instead of 5. I know those would not be popular, but in order to get our 76,500 minutes, we're going to have to go where we have to go. But what if we get no closures? And I built in this 11-month calendar, and now we got 4 weeks off between December and January, and we haven't had a single closure, right? So I just would hate to build in all that time and then not even need it, when what we could do is we may have to go 2 weeks in June for the 14 days we close. If we close twice, we may have to go
Dr.
longer.
Roy, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Could you even extend the school day an hour each day and build up extra hours to where?
Absolutely. As long as we get our 75,600 minutes a week, we have lots of options.
That way you're taking advantage of the days that you are here and then you build up a little buffer. I'm just thinking out.
Ours is already an 8-period day
Right.
by design, so we could get more money from,
Right.
from CTE, but also, I mean, we have about 6 extra days built in addition to what's
Right.
already here. So all these days where kids are off and teachers are doing professional development, we wouldn't be doing professional development. We would be giving instruction. So I think we just try to absorb the days in which we have, and we communicate to people that these days are here unless we have a COVID closure. Then, I mean, you're getting those days off. So it's not like you don't get the days off. They're just not right where you'd like for them to be or right where they might traditionally be. And to be aware that we may have to, you know, go to school some in June, depending upon where these closures occur. But that's pretty much the recommendation I'm making. And again, I'm not ready to make an A/B recommendation because I just think it poses too many problems for families and buses and everything else. And I think the CDC, just based on the way things have been lessening, that maybe by August, we won't look like that school from China. We'll look a whole lot less, we're more reasonable, if that makes sense. So I will send you guys this PowerPoint as well. A lot of good links if you're interested in just looking at them. Obviously, don't if you don't like to, but I would think this would be a perfect time if anybody would like to comment on any of the things that I kind of shared with you, because the onus is on me to be transparent that they want us to do to plan for the 11 month and to plan for the sporadic closure. And then I'm saying to you, I'm recommending we don't do anything yet, because I just think there's so many things that could change, and I don't want to keep changing back and forth and back and forth. I mean, look, like graduation's a perfect example. You know, we thought we were going to have to do XYZ. Everybody changed their graduations to June and July. And then he said you could do it July 1, and we raised a little sand, and they moved it back to May 29th. And now everybody's having a graduation. You know, yeah, it's a little different, but I just think if we we wait, the way things are reopening, you know, they said, what did he say Friday? I anticipate there'll be college football with fans in the stand. If we can make that happen, I'm thinking it's gonna be a little less strict than what we're anticipating right now.
It sounded terrible when you first put it out there. But there at the end, when you said, you know, we'll build these days in there, but then we might not have to use them. Well, then, I mean, that's most people's job here. If you have to, you know, if you have, or that's how my job goes. If you have to have a big extended miss, you won't get paid, but you want to make it up after you use your sick days or whatever. So if you look at it like that, where you're like, okay, people, good chance we're praying that everything's gonna be the same. The worst case scenario is you're gonna get days off different than the days that you have. But I like what Terry talked about. You could just, I don't know if that's the best education idea, because I know Coach Batty used to always stress he wanted those days, you know, number of days. If you could build it in, so worst case scenario, you build up a bunch of minutes, then it doesn't just kill you if you have to be off.
Agreed. I mean, that's certainly something that we're considering. I will say that, you know, the idea of losing, they love that week off at Thanksgiving, and I know that they would be heartbroken. And some would probably leave anyway, just like the same
not
thing
sure
with it.
will.
They're probably gonna have terrible attendance or something along those lines. However, they'll, you know, they'd be burning their days then. But that's quite a possibility, but you know, golly, can you imagine your 7-year-old staying at school 9 hours, 10 hours a day? That would be a tough, long day for a really young student. So that to me is the only heartbreaking
I
thing.
personally believe as good a staff as we have, they'll perform. I believe it's the children, I think Steve's right. You kind of just let that cat out of the bag now, I think people are gonna miss for everything. And they're gonna say, I'm scared, don't hold it against me.
Well,
But that's with the whole society. That's not just
Right.
the school. I think that's just kind of the direction we're going.
well, hopefully they'll provide us some stricter guidelines in that. I will say that they have indicated that we are going, they only get so much leave under the CARES Act. It's 10 days, 10 working days. After that, they're on their own leave. So that's going to cut down some of that, at least in the school district, because once they run out of their 10 days for that, now they're going to start losing pay, then they might not be as scared.
I think it's going to be the children though. You know,
I mean,
think-
you're right,
Mama,
you're right
Dad,
about being scared, you know?
Yeah.
When it first started, everybody was terrified. Now, we
Yeah.
ain't too much worried about it now.
Unless you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the topics of conversation we've been charged with sharing with you guys today. And I think I am back to you, sir.
Item B, Chief Academic Officer Report, Ms. Knott.
She's joining us online.
Hi, everybody. I
Hello.
got to see you earlier. Fun listening to you guys via this setup. It was quite interesting. But we could hear you really well, so it sounded great. So I just want to give you an update on professional development. I sent you guys some documents earlier. You got a chance to look at it. Our teachers are attempting, and our staff are attempting to pass the educator level 1 exam in Google, the fundamentals training, and then all of our trainer of trainers. We have a trainer of trainer team. They're going to try to take all 3 exams. They have 3 exams that they have to pass. And so everybody's working towards passing these exams. A little bit overwhelming because there are 13 modules that they have to go through. It can be pretty intense, but you know, when we started to talk about summer professional development, we knew that we had to start talking about what blended learning platform were we going to use in the event of a school closure next year. And how do we make sure we have that one thing like Dr. Boyette talked about? And so Google Classroom was already being used by a lot of folks at the secondary level. We had quite a few high school teachers and really most of the middle school. Ms. Weidman has done a great job of even supporting her teachers who were unfamiliar with Google Classroom. So they've done a lot of Google Classroom during this school closure time. And so we felt like that was the best platform to go with because a lot of teachers were already familiar with it. Now, challenging them with this educator level 1 training and passing this test is a little challenging. So they were a little overwhelmed. So many of them, we rolled it out early so they could start on it. And we asked them to finish the first 6 modules in the last 2 weeks of school and then finish the other part in the summer. And then they email me for an access code to take a test. And so for me, it's not as important that they pass the test, but that they develop an understanding of how to use Google Classroom. And there are some key components to Google in general in this training. But what we hope to do is to support our teachers with a trainer models, a model. So we've got a Google team. We're calling ourselves the G Squad, and we're going to be doing some PD and some video and really some training of our parents as well as our staff over the summer, offering some opportunities for them to come up to labs. And we felt like in order for this to be our platform in the district, there's got to be a parent comfort level too. But having one learning platform to present everything in is going to end up being very beneficial for our parents, so that they don't have, if you've got 3 separate kids, their teachers are not doing 3 separate things. They're very familiar with this platform, so they can upload and it'll be very similar for everybody. So the summer professional development is going to include this, because this is going to be our blended learning platform in Warren ISD. And what we hope to do is to require a blended learning model next year as soon as we start school, so that teachers are very comfortable, or they get even more comfortable with blended learning in the classroom. So we're going to be working with teachers to develop lessons on a weekly basis that require blended learning, even when we're in session, so that in the event we have to close down, the very next day learning continues. So our hope is that we can continue with some really good rigorous learning at home if we do close, so that we can continue to get funding. Of course, there's a lot of elements that go into that, but I wanted to make sure you know that's kind of the purpose behind our professional development plan for Google Classroom. The second thing is we have to continue to address our needs improvement in special ed. So we purchased a program called, oh Lord, I almost forgot the name of it. Yeah, that program. It's called, what's it called? Exceptional Child. The Exceptional Child has a lot of really fabulous modules for teachers to participate in, again, all online, so that they don't have to do face-to-face training. And they'll get 16 hours of professional development with a focus in our blended learning, and also a focus on special ed training for everybody. And this program we found was the most cost effective, and actually delivers a really great professional development model for our teachers from home that'll help benefit us as we move into a more inclusive environment in the fall. So that was huge. That's some of our PD. You know, we've talked a lot about House Bill 3 reading academies. Dr. Boyette and I tossed around different models that we wanted to run with for the district. What we've decided to do is to try to train all of our teachers in year 1. We have 3 years to get them trained, but we know that, you know, if we can roll this out from the very beginning, I think what we can see is balanced literacy take on a whole new face in Warren ISD. So what we've decided to do is there are 2 different types of learning that teachers can participate in throughout the year. And there's the comprehensive model, and then there's also the blended model. And so the blended model is where it's kind of self-paced, and teachers do a blended model of instruction online. And then the comprehensive model is actually face-to-face training. It's very intense training. It's 10 face-to-face training days. The teachers will attend 3 days in the summer, and then they will go 7 days throughout the year. It's pretty much 1 every month. I think there's 2 in January is the plan. For Region 5, we'll be hosting those for us. And we tossed around, you know, what do we want this to look like? And so Dr. Boyette suggested that we train all of our kindergarten teachers, right? Because you want to start with a really strong foundation. So we're going to send all kindergarten teachers in Warren ISD for comprehensive training, and they'll do those 10 sessions. And we're also going to send our resource teachers, our special education resource teachers, just to help them have a better idea of what balanced literacy looks like, and maybe to help build capacity in our resource teachers, who are also sometimes inclusion support teachers, so that they can move forward and help with that literacy piece for our SPED kids, so that we're not increasing the achievement gap, but decreasing the achievement gap as we grow those kids all the way up to middle school and high school. Anyway, that's what we have planned at this point. We're working with this Google team. We're hoping to roll out some learning. We're going to highly recommend that learning continue over the summer for our kids to help close these gaps. And I'm hoping that the Google team will help to put those formats in place to make it real user friendly for parents. And we're going to use a Google Classroom setting to assist our parents in delivering that instructional model. We're also using the state's at-home learning because the curriculum's already been created for us. So we're simply going to plop that in the Google Classroom format so that we can keep getting our parents familiar with Google Classroom. Anyway, that's on my agenda. That's all I got for you. Any questions?
Sounds good.
Billy? Wow.
All face to face.
Well, I just want to piggyback a couple of things. The decision on the reading academies, y'all know I'm a little competitive. So we know that every district has to, they have to do this same training through reading academies. And they gave us 3 years in which to get it done. So my way of thinking was if I get 100%, if I have 30 teachers and the school next door has 30 teachers and they decide to do 10, 10, and 10, and I do all 30 up front, then for 2 years I got stronger teachers than they got. So better for my kids, I hope should equate to better scores. I gotta spend the same amount of money. In fact, it may be more the further along this goes. If I jump in on the front end, I just thought we could get a little bit of a competitive edge. The other key piece to that is they have assured us that our funding is good right now from House Bill 3, for House Bill 3 initiatives through the next legislative session. So that means we're fine this year, probably fine next year, but the year after that, not so much guaranteed as far as, whether or not the funding at the way in which we have it now would be the same. So I thought better go ahead and get that paid for. So I'm not trying to pay for it in the third year if the funding is somehow, the funding formula is less per student. So I just kind of wanted you to know why we made that decision. I'd like to just expand a little bit on what Jan said about summer school to one more time in case, I don't know how many participants we have. We may not have anybody watching, but we are going to offer summer school for everybody. And again, it's optional, but we want them to be able to log into a Google Classroom and be able to catch up if their parents are worried about them being behind, or stay on top if they're not worried about them to be behind, but they go, gosh, it's a really long time before August gets here. And so we are going to have different weeks worth of lesson for 8 weeks during the summer for everybody. Now, we're also going to bring in 60 kids, some of whom were already in danger of failing when closure happened. We're bringing them in face-to-face starting June 8th for 2 weeks, just like you would normal summer school, to remediate and work on those key pieces. And of course, it'll be based for doing that for promotion versus retention, or for remediation, or any of our special needs students who did not receive the services that they should have received. We want to make sure to get caught up with those services and provide them the hours that they need so that we start fresh when school starts. But we know that there are people out there who are concerned that their children are not, being challenged enough in the last few weeks. And so we want to be able to provide 8 weeks for everybody. That, our GT kid to the most special needs student. So there will be some options out there, and that's new and different, but it's to me, it's a good way in which to assure people that we are preparing for whatever is ahead, and it gives them a chance to practice and even have something for their kids to do. So that's that piece. And I think, Jan, the only other thing I have on here that you were going to do was introduce Heather.
Okay, well, I know you guys are familiar with Heather Mitchum. So Heather and I have been working together on the Exceptional Child, and she's been working really hard since she got here to get a great perspective on our special ed program. Heather, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear
There
me?
you are. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to see y'all. I'm excited still about meeting some of y'all who I haven't met yet, but I was going to just kind of talk for a second about what we've been doing since I came to Warren, which was on May 12th. One of the things that we were doing was, like Dr. Boyette said, looking at our kiddos in special programs who may not have received some of their related services during COVID, and deciding if we need to bring them in for summer school, deciding if we need to have those ARD meetings for any related services, or even if a kiddo was supposed to get so many minutes of inclusion per week, then we need to make sure that we did that. But that's going through a lot of paperwork, talking to a lot of teachers, gathering a lot of documentation. And then I think we do have some students who already qualified for ESY, which is extended school year services. So we're working on those kids. Since that point, I've been trying to meet with all the different administrators. I haven't got quite to everybody in high school yet because I know they're working and so busy on graduation, but I've been kind of analyzing everybody's perspective, what their points of views are on the strengths and weaknesses within special programs, doing a needs assessment, talking about doing a big push for inclusion. Once we put more kiddos in inclusion, I think all of y'all's indicators and scores are going to rise. That will kind of be the first point that levels everything else out. So a lot of what we're doing is planning for next year and putting the training and the tools in there that we will need to be successful. But if y'all have any questions, please feel free to email me, call me. I just got into my new office last week. I'm super excited. So I'm in the junior high. Come by and say hi, and I look forward to talking to all of y'all.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jan or Heather? I think our next one is
Mr.
yes,
Ling.
Mr. Ling.
Oh,
Oh, good, he took his mask off.
yes, I took my mask off. That way, if I do the little cough, y'all are a long ways off, okay? Okay. My news isn't so rosy on the property value study update. Our law firm was able to get reversed about $1 million worth of the property value that had been excluded. But what that really translates into is about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of property taxes out of the $250,000 of taxes that we lost. So basically, we're going to end up losing most of that money for this year. We can press on through with the appeal process, but there wasn't a big gain in where we did there, so it would be tough to reach the goal to where all of that would be reversed. So, what is happening with our appraisal district? It would probably be a good thing. I just got a letter from the appraisal district today with their certified estimates, and that's something when we sit down and have our budget study, we need to sit down and look at it wasn't down as much as what I thought, but I'm concerned about with what his reappraisal plan is and what they're going about doing this year. So I believe that is a topic that we need to, when we have our budget workshop, sit down and discuss that. Any questions about that?
Mr. Wade. Can you hear me there? Oh, I'm talking to his face. All right, Mr. Lane, on this appraisal, since we have lost it and the state's gonna stick to it, do we have any teeth in making Mr. Luther come up to their number?
We have the ability to appoint the board member on his board.
Right now it's Mr. Nash. And I will say that I asked Mr. Spatter to speak with Mr. Nash. Mr. Nash spoke with Mr. Luther. I spoke with Judge Blanchett, who also spoke with Mr. Luther. And we got back an email basically saying, that they're going to do what they call a managerial year. So they're just going to update all the addresses and things like that. So nobody's getting another really, a reappraisal. So here's the kicker, the takeaway from our appeal is instead of losing 300,000, we're gonna lose 270,000. So then next year will be our second year to not pass the property value study, so we'll probably lose even more than that.
That's what I was saying. So they've already set the values, what they're gonna pay us for. If we don't change those values, we're gonna lose $270,000 next year.
Or more, right?
And the next, and the next, and the next, until they either give up, which they won't, or we bring, and I don't wanna pay any more tax. But if we don't bring it up to what the state says it's worth, they're gonna ding us every year from now.
And I'll say it again, like I did last month. What are we getting our money's worth out of the appraisal district?
Well,
And
We pay them a lot of money
a whole lot of money.
and we're getting nothing.
So I
in
asked you a
return.
question, and I think I replied in one of the briefings, but I asked the attorneys if we could say, well, if you're only gonna do X amount, can you prorate us some funds back from what because we pay over 230,000, I think, to them.
yes.
And we're losing 270. So anyway, I thought that was a reasonable question, and she sent me the law where it says not can, will, but shall pay according to a formula that is devised by the state. So that amount of money is assigned to us, and there's no wiggle room in that.
And if we delay payment, there's a penalty, a percentage
Right.
that is applied.
And I don't think we should be a price fix. But I agree with Eric. They work for us and the state's already, and they're the ones that send the money. So if they're saying the place is worth this, I mean, that's the worst situation you can be in. We're gonna be punished about it and there's not one, we don't send any appraisal.
Well, and it's not unreasonable for us to expect that it should be able to be, we should be able to pass the property value study because we're in the unique situation where we're in Hardin County and Tyler County, and we passed with flying colors in Hardin County.
Yes.
So apparently, the way in which they're assessing in Hardin County is working, and we're not getting, dinged for the property value study there, only in
That's
Tyler
exactly
County.
what I'm saying. Either we should be able to win the appeal or they're appraising them wrong. One of the two. If they're appraising them right, we should be able to win the appeal. If we can't win the appeal, we must be appraising them. Because I know our lawyers brought up every comp in the world. I'm sure they tried.
Well, the problem is that the state only pulls 80 of all the properties.
But
They
if
only
we're
pull
appraising
80.
those 80 right, we should be able to win the appeal, don't you think, Mark? I mean, or they're doing it wrong. One of the two.
Well, we were only able to recover about $1 million worth, and which equated to about $30,000 for us out of the 300. So the appeal wasn't as successful, obviously, as we hoped. We wanted to get all 300,000 back, but the only way in which my understanding, the only recourse we have is if the people who employ him, which is their board, decide that that's not the way in which they want things done.
Well, I think it's real good. My goodness, they live streaming or they gonna go up.
But I think that was the question was, what recourse do we have? We really don't, they're not our employee.
That's why I just don't see how the state punishes for something that we don't. I mean, Rocky was setting it, I can
Right.
understand how they.
Right.
I
No,
mean,
we
all
really
we're
don't.
doing is setting the tax rate, right? And the appraisal district is the one that's appraising the property.
That's right,
But we're the ones that are getting punished by it, so,
right.
and paying for it.
Pay 250, lose 270. That's not good.
Exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we clarified that. Mr. Ling, did we cover everything? Oh, I was going to tell you, she did send me the disc of the appeal. So if anybody wanted to look further into the appeal and what she, the 80 properties and what she actually did, that I have that available for you to look at if you'd like to. All right, Mr. Ling, back to you.
Okay. Now that we're past that one, the accounting firm. I've put on there for Axley Rohde to do our accounting firm. It's the one that has done it for the past several years. They have been they're thorough. They have become they're specializing in school districts and governments now. to where they're able to do the audits on a very reasonable basis. But, and we basically just have gotten to the point where we just open up our computer system to them and they're able to audit through our system rather than us providing reams and reams and reams of paper. They're able to spend basically 2 days with us, one day where they do their preliminary work, and then one day in the later on in the auditing period. And then most of the information is handled through the computer system. But that's possible because we have reached a point to where we're open enough with them that once we give them the go, we just open up our entire computer system to them, and they're able to do that. And that's how they've been able to keep their fees basically at the same rate for the past 4 to 5 years. And that's who we recommend that we go with for our auditors, continuing on with them. And that will be a business item coming up after the consent agenda.
9A, it will come up at 9A.
Any questions about them?
Yeah, I've been pleased. I think that's good, Terry.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
all right.
Item number 8, the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are acted upon by one motion upon a board member's request. Any item on the consent agenda shall be moved to the action portion of the regular agenda. The items are April 27, 2020 minutes, April 2020 bills and accounts, April 2020 tax office report, April 2020 financial statements, and 2021 Warren School lunch prices.
Terry, may I, before we make a proposal, is there a change to the school lunch prices?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you like to share it?
Yes. There is a formula that is used, this provided to us by Region 5 and also from TDA as to how much we can and are required to increase our prices. Our prices that we actually charge have to be close enough to what we receive from the federal government in reimbursement. In other words, we can't be charging a lot less money to our people that are paying than what the federal government is paying for the free lunches. But we have to be catching up to that point. But we can only raise it by a certain amount. And so what we have done is use that formula, and that's what we have come up with for the prices. Now, we've kind of leveled it across the board. We can come up with, like if our elementary was way out of whack from our high school, we could put all of the like increase on elementary as long as you come up with an average increase. But what we did, we put it with a little bit of increase on everybody all across the board.
So what is the increase? 10 cents?
For breakfast, last year we charged the junior, elementary is free across the board. And that's a choice that we have always done, is that all elementary kids eat free. Junior high breakfast was $1.85. It will be $1.95. High school breakfast was $1.85. It will be $1.95. Adult was $2.50. It will be $2.60. So everything went up by a dime.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
On the
We were on-
reach in the elementary went up 15. Was there a reason for that? You just
Now that's on the lunches. On the lunches went up by, the elementary went up by 15 cents. The junior high and high school went up by 310, and the adults, we moved up by a dime. We did have a little bit of leveling that we put there at an even $3 rather than giving nickels out.
Oh, okay, okay. Y'all
Yeah,
should all have a copy.
Otherwise, every time you give them a nickel out, you set it at $3 and it's just $3.
All right, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew the new prices that was watching. Thank you.
I'll entertain the motion.
Rocky, I did have one question about.
Yes, sir.
Maybe this is just crazy. It was shocking to me that basically the ball field would have a $1,100 lap. We're not even in school. $1,048.66.
Mr. Lane?
Yeah, Mr. Lang, Burke, are we running lights in the evening? Like for security purposes, we're trying to figure out the reason for the $1,100 light bill.
I
with the
think
ball
I
field.
remember one time y'all said it was connected to something else also, but I can't remember.
Yeah, is the ball field connected to the tennis courts?
I wouldn't think so.
It just seems like everything else averagely went
It has
down.
its own service.
And then the baseball field, ball field.
Now, one thing, the well is connected to it.
Does that come on or something?
And so if we've been doing a bunch of watering, if we watered the baseball fields a bunch, I mean, I'm just stabbing in the dark right now, but I do know that the well is connected to the,
I knew there was something else connected, but I just couldn't remember what it was.
So that may be the same, maybe what we need to do is see if that's about the same
Is what it was
all
last
the time.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, it may be the same as what it was at this time last year. But,
You just look into
at
that
that
and just
for
let
us.
us know, please, sir.
okay,
Just no hurry though.
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
That's all we got. Laura.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So that was, would you mind?
We have a motion from Mr. Raymer and a second from Steve Moore. And to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, yeah.
Business items, discuss and appropriate take action to approve the financial auditing firm for year ending August 31st, 2020. We just had that presentation. Any questions?
I move that we accept Mr. Lane's recommendation of Axel Roading.
We have a motion from Mr. Reed and a second from Mr. Brown to approve the financial auditing firm for year ending August 31st, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion passes unanimously. Discuss and if appropriate, give authorization to the superintendent to have final approval for employment of professional personnel during the months of June, July, and August. As y'all know, this is something we do every summer to where we don't have to wait to get employees on our approval. Any questions or hesitations upon this?
I'll make the motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion from Mr. Fry, a second from Mr. Raymer, to give authorization to Dr. Boyette to have final approval for employment of professional personnel during the months of June, July, and August 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion passes unanimously. I mean, yeah. It is now 8:22 PM. Board will convene into executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.001, concerning but not limited to the following sections and purposes under Texas Government Code 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, and 551.084. All final action, decision, or vote shall be taken in open session. Now convene to executive session.
How are we gonna do
is 9:23 PM. We're back in regular session. We have reconvened from closed session to action relative to items considered during closed session. The first one will be to approve the recommendations for employment and or resignations as presented. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the employment as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Burt Moore and a second from Mr. Reed.
And resignation.
And to approve the recommendation for employment and or resignations as recommended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion passes unanimously. And the next motion for incentive pay. Do I hear a
I move to approve the employee incentive pay as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion and a motion from Terry Fry and a second from Steve Moore to approve the incentive pay as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. The number 12 is a proposed date for the June budget workshop. She'll be sending something out. We'll get back to that. Board member report, Summer Leadership Institute.
Our summer leadership conference has been changed from in-person to virtual and be online. Our cybersecurity, we're all up to date on it, thanks to me today. And we'll have some child abuse and human trafficking training later on in July. And it says here the 2020 spring workshop has been moved, being online also. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. The campus administrator reports, y'all want to get an opportunity to look through those. And item number 15, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move with adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from the Moores. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, y'all can stay here.
That's right. Thank you.
That quick enough, Troy?
That was quick. We made it, the battery made it.